So picture this. You've been doing everything right. You set up your investment account. Maybe it was a little intimidating at first. Maybe you watched 3 YouTube videos and read half a Reddit thread before you felt confident enough to actually click deposit, and you've been contributing every month, consistently, dutifully, sometimes a little resentfully, honestly, because that money could have been a weekend trip or a really nice dinner or just breathing room. And then you log in one day expecting to feel proud of yourself, and the number staring back at you is just fine. It's okay. It's not bad, but it doesn't feel like it matches the sacrifice. You've been doing this for 2 years, maybe 3, and the account has grown, sure, but it's grown in the same quiet, incremental way that a plant grows when you're watching it. You can't actually see it happening. You just trust that it is. And somewhere in the back of your mind, this little voice starts whispering, is this actually going to work? My name is Rick, and I have spent an embarrassing amount of time obsessing over money, not in a greedy way, I hope, but in a deeply curious way. Why wealth accumulates the way it does, why some people's money seems to have a life of its own after a certain point, multiplying and expanding almost on autopilot, while other people feel like they're pushing a boulder uphill every single year. I've read the books, run the spreadsheets, had the 2 a.m. conversations with myself, and what I've found keeps circling back to one thing, one specific moment that almost nobody talks about because it's invisible while it's happening, and it changes everything. What I want to walk you through today is what I call the inflection point, the hidden threshold in your investment journey where the math quietly flips, where your money stops being something you feed and starts being something that feeds itself. And the reason this matters so much, the reason I think it's worth sitting with for a few minutes, is that most people give up right before they get there. Not because they're lazy or undisciplined, but because nobody ever showed them what the finish line actually looks like. So let's fix that. Here's something I've noticed. The early years of investing feel a little bit like going to the gym and seeing absolutely no change in the mirror. You're putting in the work, you're being consistent, you're doing what the experts told you to do. And the results are, they're technically, but they're so gradual, so modest, that they barely feel real. Let's say you invest $500 a month and your portfolio earns an average of 8% annually. In year 1, you've contributed $6,000. Your investment returns, the money the market actually generated for you, might be somewhere around $260. That's it. That's the market's contribution in year 1. $260. You did most of the heavy lifting, like almost all of it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because this ratio, the ratio between what you're contributing and what the portfolio is generating, slowly, almost imperceptibly shifts over time. And it doesn't shift in a straight line, it shifts in a curve that starts nearly flat, and then, after a certain number of years, bends sharply upward in a way that can genuinely take your breath away if you've never seen it plotted out before. By year 10 of that same scenario, $500 a month, 8% returns, your portfolio has roughly $91,000 in it. And the annual return the market is generating for you, about $6,800. You're still contributing $6,000 a year. But now the market is matching you. Almost dollar for dollar, the portfolio is generating as much as you're putting in. That's the moment I'm talking about. That's where something fundamental shifts. But here's the cruel part, and I say cruel because it genuinely is. Most people never see it. Not because it doesn't happen, but because they stop before it does. They get discouraged in years 2 through 7 when progress feels dishearteningly slow, and they pull back, or they pause contributions, or they redirect the money somewhere else. They quit the gym right before their metabolism kicks in. Okay, I want to take a second here because I think compounding is one of the most poorly explained concepts in all of personal finance. And I say that as someone who has read probably 30 explanations of it. Everyone says it's interest on your interest, and then waves their hands like that phrase alone should make you feel something. It doesn't, or at least it didn't for me. So let me try a different angle. Imagine you're a farmer. You plant 100 seeds. Some of them grow into plants that produce, let's say, 10 seeds each. So now you have 1,000 seeds. You plant those. They grow into plants that each produce 10 more seeds. Now you have 10,000 seeds. The original 100 seeds are almost irrelevant now. It's the seeds generated by seeds that are doing the real work. Compounding is basically that, except instead of seeds, It's returns generating returns generating returns. And the thing that makes it so disorienting and also so magical is that the system grows based on its total size, not based on what you're adding. Once the portfolio is big enough, it starts growing faster than you could ever manually contribute. There's actually a rule of thumb called the rule of 72 that I think about a lot. You take 72 and divide it by your annual return rate, and that tells you roughly how many years it takes for your money to double. At 8% returns, that's about 9 years. So if you have $50,000 today, in 9 years you might have $100,000 without adding a single dollar. In 18 years, $200,000. In 27 years, $400,000. And here's what makes this feel almost unfair in the best possible way. The doubling happens over the same amount of time, regardless of the starting number. Going from $50,000 to $100,000 takes roughly the same 9 years as going from $400,000 to $800,000, which means as the numbers get bigger, each doubling period represents an absolutely enormous amount of money appearing almost out of nowhere. And that's the machine. That's what you're building toward. And the only thing standing between you and that machine running at full speed is time. There's a more dramatic version of the inflection point that I find both incredibly motivating and a little bit humbling. It's the moment when your portfolio, in a single year, generates more money than you earn at your job. Now, I know that sounds far off for most people, and depending on where you're starting, it might be, but it's worth running the actual numbers, because the timeline is often shorter than people expect. Let's say you earn $60,000 a year, and let's say you've been consistently investing over a long period, and your portfolio has grown to $750,000. At an 8% average annual return, that portfolio is generating $60,000 a year. Your money is now earning your salary every year, without you doing a single extra thing. I don't know, I find that deeply profound every time I think about it, because at that point, your investments aren't supplementing your income, they're replicating it. And if you let them keep compounding rather than drawing them down, the next doubling period takes you to a portfolio generating $120,000 a year, then $240,000. The momentum is self-sustaining in a way that feels almost surreal until you actually see it happen. And look, I'm not saying everyone needs to retire early or pursue some extreme version of financial independence. That's not the point. The point is that understanding this trajectory changes how you feel about the money you're setting aside right now. That $200 you transferred to your brokerage account last Tuesday. It's not just $200, it's a small, quiet piece of a machine that is going to be running long after you've forgotten you made that transfer. Here's something I want to be honest with you about. The math on compounding is straightforward. The behavior required to actually benefit from it is not. And the gap between those two things is where most people's financial stories go sideways. The biggest threat to reaching your inflection point isn't a stock market crash, believe it or not. It's not inflation. It's not even starting too late, though that does matter. The biggest threat is what behavioral economists call present bias. This deeply human tendency to weight the present moment far more heavily than the future, even when we intellectually understand that the future is real and will eventually arrive. Present bias is why you pause your investment contributions when money gets tight and never quite restart them. It's why you cash out your 401k when you change jobs instead of rolling it over, because that lump sum in your hand right now feels more real than compound growth happening invisibly over 20 years. It's why every financial setback feels like a reason to press pause, when most of the time it's actually an argument for staying the course. I had a friend, let me call him Marcus, who started investing at 24. He was disciplined, he was consistent. Then at 29, he went through a rough patch, job transition, a move, a breakup. Life just kind of landed on him all at once, and he stopped contributing for 2 years. Not forever, just 2 years. He told himself he'd restart when things settled down, which is something a lot of us tell ourselves. When he ran the numbers later, that 2-year pause cost him, not in the money he didn't contribute, but in the compound growth those contributions would have generated, somewhere around $180,000 over his full investment lifetime. 2 years, $180,000, because of where those contributions would have sat in the compounding curve. I'm not telling you that story to make you feel bad about pauses or setbacks. Life is not a spreadsheet, and real hardship is real hardship. I'm telling you that story because I think it illustrates something important. The cost of interruption is almost always larger than it feels in the moment, and sometimes just knowing that is enough to make you find another way. One of the practical challenges of long-term investing is that the feedback loop is brutally slow. You put money in, you wait, you check your balance. It's a little more than last time. This is not exactly dopamine-releasing stuff, and we live in an era of instant everything. You post something and you see the likes roll in within minutes. You order something and it shows up the next morning. The entire design of modern digital life is built around immediate feedback. So sitting with an investment account that's quietly doing its thing over years and decades runs completely counter to every psychological reward system your brain has been conditioned to expect. So here's something I think is genuinely useful. Stop checking your absolute balance and start tracking your annual investment income. What I mean by that is this. Instead of logging in and seeing $34,200 and feeling vaguely underwhelmed, calculate how much your portfolio generated for you in the last 12 months purely from returns. That number, however small it seems now, will grow, and tracking its growth year over year gives you a progress metric that actually maps to what you're building. In year 3, your portfolio might be generating $1,200 a year in returns. By year 7, maybe $5,000. By year 12, maybe $14,000. Those aren't huge numbers, but they're real. They're money the market made for you while you were at work or asleep or watching television. And watching that number climb is, I think, a much more emotionally satisfying way to measure progress than staring at an account balance that can go up and down based on market conditions you can't control. There's also something I'd call the milestone mindset that I find helpful. Instead of thinking of the journey as one long flat road until retirement, think of it in compounding milestones. The first milestone is reaching $10,000, because now the market is doing real tangible work for you every year. The second is $25,000, then $50,000, then $100,000. Each threshold represents a new level of compounding velocity. And celebrating those milestones, not by spending the money, but just by acknowledging what they mean, keeps the emotional engine running. I want to address something gently because I know it comes up in a lot of people's heads when they hear about compound growth and long investment timelines. And that's the question, what if I started late? Maybe you're reading this at 42 or 55. Maybe your 20s were consumed by debt or low income or circumstances that made investing feel like a fantasy. And maybe hearing about 20-year compounding timelines makes you feel not inspired, but quietly anxious. Like the boat already left and you're standing on the dock. Here's what I want you to sit with. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And that's not just a bumper sticker. It's mathematically accurate. A 50-year-old who starts investing seriously and consistently still has 15, 20, 25 years of compounding ahead of them, depending on when they retire and how long they live. That is still enormous. The curve still bends upward. The inflection point still arrives. It just arrives later on the timeline, but that's better than it never arriving at all. And here's something that genuinely surprised me when I first ran these numbers. Starting at 40 with $500 a month still gets you, in 20 years, to somewhere around $294,000 at 8% average returns. That's not as much as starting at 25, no, but it's $294,000 that you wouldn't have otherwise. It's a portfolio generating nearly $24,000 a year in passive returns by the time you're 60. That's real money. That changes things. Time is the most powerful input in the compound growth equation, and the only question that actually matters is, how much time do you have left, and are you using it? So let me pull all of this together, because I want you to walk away from this with something concrete that actually changes how you see your financial life. The hidden moment, the inflection point I've been talking about, is not a dramatic event. There's no notification, no bell, no confetti. It happens quietly, in the background, while you're living your life. It's the moment when the returns your portfolio generates in a given year begin to rival and then surpass what you're personally contributing. It's the moment the machine starts running on its own momentum, and the path to that moment is made up almost entirely of ordinary decisions. The decision to contribute this month, even when money is tight. The decision not to cash out when the market drops, and everything in you wants to do something. The decision to let boring be boring, because boring in investing is actually the strategy. What I hope you take away is this: the progress you can't see is still progress. The returns that feel too small to matter are building on each other. The account balance that makes you feel vaguely underwhelmed right now is a machine that is quietly learning to run. And at some point, it's different for everyone, but it always comes, that machine hits its stride. And when it does, when you log in one day and realize the market made you more money last year than you contributed, something shifts. Not just in your spreadsheet, in how you carry yourself, in how you think about your future, in how secure you feel in a world that often feels anything but. You're not just saving money, you're building a second version of yourself, a financial version that works while you sleep, that doesn't need vacations, that compounds its effort with every passing year. The only thing it needs from you is patience. Give it that. Give it time. Show up consistently. Let the invisible curve do its thing. Now, if you found this video valuable, make sure to press that subscribe button, comment your thoughts, and like this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.